This week on the podcast, I am starting a new series on resilience. It is such an important topic right now. It's a question that I'm getting nonstop in DMs and emails. I'm being asked to talk about it in keynote speeches. It's just something everybody wants to know about. And I honestly started to record like I normally do, where I will talk to you about a topic and then I'll give you, 5 things that have really helped me and that might help you. But when I started to dig into this topic of resilience, it just sort of exploded in my mind and in my heart and became something much bigger. The question that I started to ask myself was not, how can we as human beings learn to be stronger? How can we as human beings learn to have more willpower and learn to push harder? The question that I want to talk about, or the thing that I want to unpack when it comes to resilience, is how do we make ourselves feel better, have more energy, have more vitality, have more joy, be deeply entrenched in our purpose so that we don't get burnout in the first place? How do we find not just resilience, but energy and joy for the process? Well, I started this talking about what I thought was going to be sort of a wrapped up in a bow conversation. I quickly realized as I was digging into just the first foundational piece that this is a multi-part conversation. So today is my first installment of how to be resilient through the lens of something much bigger. I hope you enjoy this series, and as always, I hope it's a blessing to you and something that provides you with some hope or some inspiration, but definitely some tactics that you can take with you into work and into life. It's so wild, you guys. I am recording this episode in my bedroom. I tend to like to work in here because I can look outside at the trees and I feel like it's inspiring. It's just a beautiful place. If you're going to work from home, I like to work from home with a view. And I'm literally recording this intro for you, and I am watching a baby cardinal. I swear, I wish I could videotape this and show you. I'm watching a baby cardinal try and work up the courage to fly. I mean, it's like, he's not like a chick, but he's still small enough that you can see kind of like all his feathers aren't there. And he's like wobbling across this tree trunk and trying to figure out what to do. I'm literally watching him try and work up the courage, which is such a gift from the universe right now that I get to see it, but also that it's showing up for us in this conversation about how to be resilient. Because this little guy, his resilience, his willingness to find courage to do this thing that is instinctual, but also gotta be so freaking scary, that takes courage. And that courage, that resilience is a matter of life and death for him. He's got to figure out what to do or he'll starve. He's got to figure out what to do. He's got to figure out the courage to fly, to push himself off this branch, to try and go, or he's not going to eat. And I know I sound a little bit dramatic, but that's true for some of you as well. You're counting on yourself, or maybe your kids are counting on you to come through, and you're feeling weary, or you're feeling scared, or you feel just as nervous as this baby bird about what to do next. Literally this entire time I'm talking to you, he hasn't moved. He's like, oh, he just jumped. He's trying to work up the courage. It's so rad. I always feel like if you look to nature, you are going to see an example of something you need to. And so let's start our conversation today knowing that for some of us, this need to find resilience in ourselves right now is life or death. And I don't mean that literally. I mean, it's the difference between living every day, and I'm using air quotes, living every day feeling like this is no kind of life at all. Living every day feeling like you're run down to the bottom of your barrel. Living every day feeling like, God, is this all there is? wondering if it's supposed to be this stressful, if it's supposed to be this hard, or finding passion, finding purpose, finding joy, finding a higher vibration in your life so that you are truly living. Resilience is how you keep going. Resilience is how you evolve. It's how you find the next step. And if you feel like you need the next step, or you feel like you need to lead others into finding their next step, then this episode is for you, courtesy of a baby cardinal. I guess let's start this entire conversation with what I think is the most important foundational step when it comes to having resilience. The most important. And that is to make peace through mindset. To make peace through mindset. How I would describe that in more basic terms is, in order to be resilient, the first thing you have to do is accept change. You have to accept change. In fact, if you are struggling with this right now and you have not read my last book, like, you do not have to buy it. Go get it from the library for free. My last book, Didn't See That Coming, came out last year. All it is this topic. It is how to keep going when life gets hard. It's how to keep going when you're exhausted, when you've lost someone, when you're going through divorce, when your business is failing. Like, how in the world do you stand back up and go again? The very first step is that you have to accept the change. You have to accept the change, not only because you can't actually figure out what to do if you don't accept the new reality that you find yourself in, but also, and guys, this is everything. You have to accept change because the mental energy that you are putting out into the world, trying to battle with what was, like you're bargaining with God, or you're pissed off, or you wish it was a different way, the amount of mental energy and focus that you waste every single day arguing about what should be instead of what is, that's your focus. That's your capacity. Like, if you feel like you've lost, you're like, man, Rach, I really feel like I'm struggling to focus, to stay on task. I didn't used to get this distracted before COVID. I don't know what's going on. What I would clap back at you with is, what are you spending that mental energy on? We get so used to obsessing over things, or being frustrated with things, or trying to hold it all together, or trying to find a solution or fix the thing, that most of the time we don't even realize what that costs us. People talk a lot about burnout, and I think that when we dig into a conversation about resilience, burnout's for sure going to show up. Sometimes it's burnout because you're pushing too hard, but a lot of times I think burnout shows up because you're spending so much time focusing on the wrong things. So, with all the love in my heart, you have to accept what is. You have to accept what is. The last 19 months of my life, the hardest of my life. And I know this is true for so many of you. The most stressful, certainly, the ever shifting, ever changing, we're going to pivot again. It's been a lot for all of us at every level of business, at every member of the family, every friendship circle. It's just been a lot to handle. And there are times that I would feel so bitter and angry, frustrated to my core, because this isn't fair, right? Like, how many of you had moments this year where your business was failing to no fault of your own, but because a global pandemic? How many of you lost someone that you love? I lost someone that I love to COVID. That's not fair. How many of you have had those moments this year or last year where you're like, this is not fair, and you're shaking your fist at the sky? You're like, this is not fair. And I remember this saying, my ex-mother-in-law used to always tell her kids when they were little. They were in Southern California, Whenever her kids would say, "This isn't fair," she'd say, "The fair's in Pomona." Your parents say something like that, meaning they'd tell you where the fairgrounds were? When I would say, "This isn't fair," my dad would always say, "Life isn't fair. Life isn't fair." And I don't think I would ever arm my kids with that sort of outlook because I don't believe that it's that fatalistic, because that almost makes it sound like not only is life not fair, but it probably is a bit unfair. And I actually don't think that's true, which was why I didn't just say that you need to accept change first. I said that you need to make peace with what is. Make peace, because you can accept something and still be super pissed off about it. And your angry energy isn't helping you. But to make peace with something is to gather it close, is to pull it in, is to allow it to be your truth right now, even if it's not what you would have chosen. Let's step back for a minute and ask ourselves, how can we make peace with something that feels wrong? How can we make peace with something that feels hard? How can we accept this thing that feels like only negative in our life? Because frankly, if the change you were encountering was only awesome, you wouldn't need resilience, right? You'd just be living your best life. You wouldn't need to listen to this podcast. The only reason we talk about resilience is that life keeps kicking the crap out of us. It keeps feeling hard. We keep experiencing frustration. And so we have to learn to be resilient. And for me, the way that you make peace with something is through mindset. The way that you make peace with something is to accept what it is, and also to be mindful, even in the midst of hardship, how blessed you are. That God and the universe are conspiring to make sure that you have what you need, that you are supported, that there is a foundation there, that you have all the things that you're hoping for, that you want, you have them already. I have been doing so much therapy and work on myself and diving deeper and trying to understand more about the way that I view the world, the way I want to view the world, the way I think about energy, the way I think about God and faith and how that shows up. And the thing I know that's truer than true, after 38 years on this earth, after the majority of those being raised in the Christian faith, after the last several years of trying to understand other people's faith and the way that they look at the world and God and the universe around them, what I've found is that the stories and the teachings are way more similar than they are different. No matter how far back you go, no matter which part of the world, no matter what the religion is, there is a story and a narrative that rings true again and again and again about what we actually are meant to do, what we actually are here for, which is a much deeper conversation than today's episode. But the gist of it is this connection and this reminder that everything you have, you can align yourself with the energy of that now. This is the idea, this is what manifesting is. So if you listen to my episode on manifesting and the law of attraction, then you've already heard me talk about this. And if you haven't listened to that episode, go check it out. We'll put it in show notes for you so you can easily access it. It was one of the most popular conversations I've had. So clearly y'all are hippies just like I am. But essentially the idea is that we don't attract into our lives what we want. We attract into our lives what we are, what we focus on. And if you want more love, let's say I'm remembering back to being single and having a desire, let's say, for a partner in the world, having a desire for love. Now, if you're single and you're dreaming of this perfect partner, you're dreaming of this great love for your life, you could absolutely feel frustrated that you don't have it, or you could ask yourself what the feeling is that you're going for. Oh, you want to feel loved. You want a relationship because you want to feel love. Okay, where in your life do you have love? So I could go through a list, right? I could say, I have amazing friends that I love so much. I have 4 beautiful children that I love. I have a work that I love. And oh my gosh, actually, the more I think about it and the more I focus on it, the more I realize that my life is spilling with love. My life is overwhelmed with love. I have love in every direction. But if I only focus on the absence of the thing that I want, I will just continue to create more of a reality that I don't have that thing. I'm convinced that I found love when I was not looking for it, when I didn't think that that was something I wanted. I found love because my life was so full and so happy and so joyful when it came to my friends and my kids. And I just felt so blessed to get to have this community around me. That's why I fell in love. And even more so, sort of digging into that deeper, this love that I found was through friendship. Like, I'm making this connection in my mind right now. If you manifest in your life what you are, what I am is a woman who has deeply gratifying, beautiful, loving, rich relationships with my friends. And honestly, I'm like realizing this right now with you guys, that is how I found my love. That's how I found my boyfriend. I was looking for a friend. I made a friend. I literally, the first time I met him, I went to Sam and Beans for my best girlfriends. And I was like, oh my God, you guys, I just met our new best friend. And it turns out I was right, but just also that he would be someone I would make out with eventually. So how this looks when it comes to resilience is that if you're in opposition with the change that you've encountered, if you're battling with what was, if you're frustrated or anxious or sad or pissed off about the change that you've gone through or the changes you've gone through or how many times you have to pivot, the solution to that feeling is to really understand what's truly making you upset. What is truly bothering you about the change that you're experiencing? So let's say your manager, you had the best manager and you love them and they've helped you to get to this spot in your career and they were a champion for you. And then they got a new job and now all of a sudden you're experiencing a new manager. You don't really like this person and you don't know how to feel. You've already gone through so much change and it's making all these feelings come up in you. The way that you make peace with that is through the mindset of asking, what am I actually upset about right now? Am I upset that my manager left? Or am I feeling fear? Am I feeling fear that I'm not going to be taken care of? Am I feeling fear that I'm not enough for this new leader? Am I feeling fear that I'm going to lose my job? Am I feeling angry because I think I should have been the one promoted? Whatever it is you're feeling, if you can identify it, the solution is to ask yourself, does the feeling that I want, like let's say that the manager leaves and you identify, you know what, I'm actually feeling really fearful because I felt like that person was my mentor. I felt like that person had my back and now I feel all alone. Great. Now we've identified what you need to make peace, not only to make peace, but to feel great. How do you feel great? You identify in your life, where do you have support? Where do you have mentorship? Where do you have the things that you're missing when you lost that person as your direct leader? I do a lot of really intentional meditation on this idea. What's the feeling that I'm missing right now that's making me have this negative emotion? And where can I identify it in my life? Because not only does it always exist, always. I don't care where you are. I don't care what's going on. I don't care if you have access to a phone and the internet to listen to this podcast. You are doing better than 95% of the world's population. So yes, I know times are hard. And yes, I know that you might be struggling. I know. But I also know that you have blessings. I also know that that feeling you desire is already in you. And maybe you hear this and you're like, well, I have fear because I don't know how I'm going to pay my bills. Been there. That's scary. That can cause so much fear. I don't know how I'm going to pay these bills. I don't know how I'm going to take care of the kids. I don't know. All I can see is the lack, Rach. All I can see is the past due. All I can see are these things that I wish I had and I don't. So where are you blessed? Where are you rich beyond measure? I can get really attached to goals. I can get really attached to the vision that I have for my life and the next thing that I want to build. It's part of being an Enneagram 3. It's just a big part of who I am. And I have this whole vision. You might have heard me talk about it. I have this whole vision. I want to have a horse ranch. It's like my ultimate dream goal in life is to have a horse ranch in Austin with like thousands of acres. And I just have this whole vision for this like thing that I want to have. And my kids are going to grow up there and I'm going to like have dinner parties and like people can come and stay and you could like ride a horse. And like, I just have this whole vision. It makes me so excited. And I can start to get so focused on this thing that I want that I'm like, oh, when am I going to get to that? And I'm like, holy crap, baby girl, look around you. Look around you. Look like you're doing a podcast in the comfy chair in your bedroom while cardinals dance on branches outside the window. What a blessed life you have. I have conversations with myself like this all day long. When's the last time that you noticed the wonder in the life that you have? You know, you're frustrated because you have a car and you wish it was better. You wish it was cooler. It's an old clunker. You got to roll the windows down by hand. And then you remember that people are riding the bus. You're like, damn, I'm grateful for this 1992 Toyota. You make peace with the loss. You make peace with the change. You make peace with the perceived negative in your life by understanding how much positive there still is. And this episode isn't about manifesting, but the craziest thing happens when you start to live in a state of abundance. Meaning, when you start to see, like when all you can see is your blessings, when that's the only thing that you allow yourself to focus on, you start getting blessed more. The vibration that you're operating at, it raises. And you attract more things into your life. You attract more of what you focus on. You make peace through your mindset. Your mindset is your ability to choose your thoughts. I say this to my 9-year-old almost every day on the way to school. He can be a little worrier. He can be a little bit of a hypochondriac. He will see something on the internet and decide that he has a disease that is not even possible for a 9-year-old to have. And I just keep telling him over and over and over, you can choose your thoughts. Your thoughts are a running stream of consciousness. There are hundreds of thousands that float by in the course of a day, and your brain decides what to focus on. The stream of consciousness is always there. There's an infinite number of things that you can think about at any given moment. You're choosing to focus on the one. And maybe you're saying, well, Rach, no, it's really overwhelming me. And so that's why I'm focused on this thing, because I feel very overwhelmed by the hugeness of how this impacts my life. And that is true. But then there are all kinds of other things that you could be thinking on instead. And the reason that, oh my gosh, I was reading this book the other day. I was reading an old book by Wayne Dyer. And he said this thing that like tripped me out. He said something about the idea that you can choose a new thought. And he said, if you don't believe me, if you don't believe that there's an infinite number of thoughts that you can choose and that you're actually choosing the ones you think about right now, he said, then just stop thinking. Just stop thinking altogether. Don't think any more thoughts ever again. You can't do it. It's impossible to not think thoughts because there's so many that are available to you at any given moment. But just like something bad is ready and available for you to focus on, so is something good. So you can roll your eyes and you can ignore this and you can think that it's hippie and it's witchy and it doesn't apply to you and it's so much harder and it's all bad and it's all wrong. Or you can try. What if you just try? What if the next time that you're starting to feel overwhelmed, you go on YouTube and you type in gratitude meditation and you really allow yourself to feel grateful for what you have? What if you had to do that 15 times a day? And then after a little bit of time, it's only 12. And then you only have to do it 5. And then it just becomes your way of focus. I went through one of the craziest things I've ever experienced in my life the last year. And just, crazy. And it overwhelmed me every single day for over a year. Every single day I would wake up and within an hour of being awake, the anxious thought would float into my head about this seemingly insurmountable thing. This thing that I had no idea how I would overcome. I had no idea how we would get through it. Every day I would wake up and I would at some point start to focus on the most overwhelming thing I've ever experienced. Every day. And about 6 months ago, when I really started doing work on focus and what we manifest, I made a decision that in retrospect to me feels like divine guidance, divine. And every single time I would think about this very real, very dangerous, very scary thing, every single time, I just told myself, we do not give energy to that thought. I refuse to think about it. I refuse to focus on it. I refuse to give it a second, not 1 second more focus than the instant that my anxious brain went to it, and then I'm going to step away. Every single time. I course corrected. I brought myself back. I made peace with the fact that this big, scary, hard thing was happening. I made peace with the fact that I was in it. I made peace by telling myself over and over and over again, but right now you're safe. Right now your kids are safe and you're safe and you're in this beautiful home where birds dance outside the windows. You're safe right now. And this is a very real danger. But right in this exact moment, you are not in immediate danger. And so we're not going to give this 1 second of energy. I refuse to focus on it because I was convinced that if I focused my energy on this thing, I would manifest more of that chaos in my life. I would make it grow bigger. I would make it grow stronger. Not only would I make it become something more than I was, but I would essentially be torturing myself in the process because thinking about it made me physically nauseous, made me so overwhelmed. I would think of all of the rationales. This isn't fair. This is not true. This is all of these things are so horrible and so hard. And it didn't change my reality. So the only thing that I could do was not focus on it. And then I made a bold choice for me because this is like beyond what I would have ever grown up believing was true. So I had already decided that I wouldn't focus on it. And then about 3 months into changing that thought pattern, I decided to focus on exactly what I wanted to happen instead. And so every day I had written out a paragraph of exactly what I wanted to happen instead. And every single day, one of the lines in that paragraph was, this completely goes away. this completely goes away. And even as I wrote it and as I read it, I knew that this thing, this big, monstrous, terrifying thing going away would be a miracle. This is not the kind of thing that just goes away. I knew it would require a miracle, but I also felt like if my thoughts can control me, if they can make me feel anxious, if they can make me obsess, then isn't it better to try and focus them on what I want, even if it doesn't turn out right, even if it still goes horribly wrong? At least my thoughts are focused on the good thing instead of the negative possibility. And you want to know something crazy? It completely went away. It completely went away. And I remember sitting with my boyfriend. The kids were at their dad's. I was sitting with my boyfriend, and I was physically and mentally and emotionally exhausted from this thing that I've been going through. And I was sitting on the couch, and I swear to you, that week I had just made peace with it. It was the hardest week that I had dealing with this process, but I had just made peace with it. I had refused to focus on it, and I had diligently and faithfully every single day read that paragraph. This completely goes away. And I got a call, and they told me, it's done. It's gone. And I could not believe it. It felt like a miracle. It really, from the depths of my being, it felt like a miracle. It was a miracle. But the older I get, the more I believe that we all have the ability to create miracles. I really believe this. I really believe that there is something divine in us, and there is something divine in the universe around us, and we are capable of creating that which we choose to focus on. You can make peace with even the hardest things in your life. You can. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy. Doesn't mean that you're going to get results quickly. But the most amazing thing about that process is when you let go of trying to control what is and isn't happening, when you let go of it not going the way it was supposed to, when you let go of the unfairness, when you let go of the why me, when you ground yourself in faith and hope and love, when you ground yourself in how freaking blessed you are, even when you're still facing hardship. And I'm not out of the woods yet. I'm still facing hardship. But even when it was more dire, even before this miracle happened, even then, I was living in faith. We get to choose our outlook. We do. I am a living example, but gosh, there are so many examples. There are so many teachers. There are so many, like throughout history, like I started this conversation going back into every bit of recorded religion. There is evidence of this idea that we are meant to be aligned with our God. We are meant to be aligned with the universe. And maybe you're like, I came on this podcast to listen to you talk about resilience so I could learn to be a better executive at my company. Yeah. The way that you become a better executive, a better mama, a better human is that you evolve and grow as a person. I mean, give me the choice of a leader who's grounded in love and faith in something bigger than them, or a leader who's bitter and pissed off about change. I'm going to choose the witchy woman who does meditation every day, all day long. I meant to do an entire episode on 5 different points of resilience, but I'm realizing resilience is such a bigger conversation. There are foundations to this, and the first one starts with a mindset. The first one starts with understanding manifesting, and not that you can control what happens in the world around you, but you can certainly control your state as you take it on. Resilience is how fast can I get back up when I've got knocked down? Resilience is how do I find the strength to keep going? That's what we know it as. But I'm asking you to consider a resilience defined by doing those things with joy, doing those things with energy, doing those things with vibrance. What would that look like in your life? Can you imagine how freaking unstoppable you would be if you were emotionally healthy and physically healthy and your mindset was strong? You'd be unstoppable, because no matter what life throws at you, you would stay grounded in the knowledge that you are blessed beyond measure. You would stay grounded in the knowledge that your goals and your dreams are beautiful and worthwhile, because you are worthwhile and you matter, but you don't need those goals to be happy. If you think that the goal is going to make you happy, it's why you get so freaking pissed off when it's hard. It's why you get so upset when you have to pivot and change, because you've decided that you need this preconceived outcome in order for your life to be made better. Your life is already better. It is. But you have to look for it. This is not BS. Like, there is a reason that every great teacher going back generations and eons has been talking about this idea. And I'd like to challenge us to consider that we don't just ask how we can have the willpower to go again, or how we can have the motivation to go again, but how we can have the joy to go again. This is my first installment in my conversation on resilience. Step number 1, make peace through mindset. That's my challenge for you this week. Make peace through your mindset. Notice your thoughts as they happen. Notice them. Just become aware of them passing through your mind. Because if you can begin to notice your thoughts, you can allow yourself to step outside of them. Oftentimes we think we don't have control over what we think because we never take a step back and realize that we are separate from the thoughts we think. My doctor says, you don't have to believe every stupid thought that comes into your brain. What a concept. Separate yourself from your thoughts and just begin to notice them. And then begin to notice them without judgment. If you see yourself having an anxious thought, just think, oh, look, I'm doing that thing again. Whoop, there's my pattern where I get triggered by this feeling. Notice yourself having those thoughts. That's step number 1. And then Gabby Bernstein has this great step, like 3 steps that she does when she's talking about realigning your thoughts. She says, notice the thought, forgive yourself for having that thought, and then choose a thought that will make you feel good. It's that simple. What's the next great feeling thought that you can have? Focus on that instead. Make peace with your life. Make peace with the change. The only way you can truly do that is to accept that everything is happening for you. Everything is happening in alignment, that you are supported. Gabby would say that the universe has your back. I would say that the Creator who made you, who brought you into existence, has a divine plan, and that though it feels hard at times, you're where you're meant to be. Can you see the lesson in this for what it is? Can you see what you were meant to learn? Can you see how you are getting stronger? Can you see how your heart's being cracked open? Can you see how you're changing in the best of ways? Because if you look for those things, they will be true. Come back next week, because if the first step is to make peace through mindset, the next step is to redefine how empowered you are. Next week, I have a really specific activity that we're going to do to make you realize how resilient you already are. So go check out that episode if you're listening to this in the future. And if you're listening to this in real time, join me next week and let's keep talking about this. If you enjoyed today's episode, guys, I really would appreciate if you'd share it on social. You can take a screenshot and put it in your stories and link out to this episode, or you can share it with a friend that you think needs it, or you can share it with your team at work. It's a conversation we need to be having as a society. Not just how do we keep going, but how do we keep being in a way that feels really good. I did an episode last week on resilience, and I gotta be honest, I was totally blown away. Like, I don't know the last time I have done an episode that you guys have responded to in such a big way. I got so many DMs, so many people tagged me on social. Clearly, this is a subject that people really resonate with right now. And that's great because that was part 1 of a multi-part series. So today is part 2 of my conversation about resilience. And if you didn't listen to last week's episode, go find it. I think it's a really important conversation to kind of lay the groundwork for what we're going to talk about today. Last week, I talked about the idea that for me, I think the first step is making peace with what is. And the way that we make peace is through our mindset and the way that we look at things. So that's what last week's episode was about. Go dig in and start there. But assuming you've already consumed that one, this week I want to talk about power. I want to talk about your personal power from a few different perspectives, because resilience really is about strength. And nobody comes into this world resilient. You come into this world completely dependent on other people to keep you alive. In fact, my friend Tom and I were just talking about this, and it was in Tuesday's episode. So if you didn't listen to my interview with Tom Bilyeu, go check this out. He talks about this idea that humans are the only animal that come into the world with just zero skills and ability to keep themselves alive. Think about a horse. A horse comes into the world and 20 minutes later, it's walking. We come into the world and we can't do anything. And if you're designed in such a way, we have to presuppose that there's a reason for that. Yes, we are much more complex, and we can think and we can speak and we can do things that animals can't do. And so it's easy to think that it takes us longer to evolve and become functioning human beings because we have more things to evolve. But you can also look at it another way and ask if there's something more at play than just the fact that your wiring is more complex. Maybe what's at play is the reminder that we always have the ability to grow and evolve. And if you think about it, we did not come into the world with strength, but we certainly have the capability of growing it. Resilience is not something you're given at birth. Resilience is something you develop over time. So if you're listening to this and you feel frustrated because you think you should have been stronger, you think you should have had more willpower, you think you should have stood up faster, you think you should have kept going and not quit on yourself. If you're feeling frustrated with that, I want you to understand that this is something you can learn. And for me, it comes down to power. This week, I want to talk about how you can understand the power that you have and how you can find empowerment in what you've already gone through. So let's start with this idea of empowerment. I always hesitate to use that word. I think a lot of people say, like, I want to empower women, right? But I think the dangerous part about empowering someone is it presupposes that they didn't have power in the first place. So I don't want you to think of the idea of empowerment as if someone needs to unlock a magic thing in you. You have incredible strength and incredible power. And if you don't feel like you do, it's because you're not paying attention. So one of the greatest things that I know of in terms of feeling strong is to look to our past. Now, if you were with me last weekend during Rise Conference, or you've been part of Rise Conference before, then you understand that we devote an entire day to unpacking our past, to looking at what we've gone through, to looking at the hard stuff and the good stuff and the things that we've overcome, not from a place of making us feel weak or making us feel sad, but from a place of realizing, holy crap, if I can live through that, I definitely can live through the fact that I'm not sure how I'm going to make my car payment this month, right? Like if I can live through my parents' divorce, if I can live through my own divorce, if I can live through losing a friend, if I can live through losing a business, if I can live through, I'm trying to come up with every possible idea of what you guys might have walked through in your life. And I'm not even going to get close because the reality is that each and every one of us has our own traumatic, hard pieces. And sometimes we don't even want to look at them because it feels like too much. And sometimes we look at them, but only from a place of pain. It's rare that we're taught to look at the past trauma and use it to see ourselves as strong, as warriors capable of taking on anything. You have already been through so much to be here right now. I know you have because you're a human being. It's impossible for you to have gotten to this place in your life and not have had to live through some really hard stuff. But it's human nature to focus on the pieces of yourself that you're frustrated by. So all you see are the things you wish you would have done. All you see is the lack. You don't think about the fact that you're the one who managed to put yourself through school. You don't think about the fact that you didn't have the kind of parents that you wish you had. And so you basically raised yourself and maybe you raised your siblings. You don't think about the fact that you get up every day and care for your children while you're struggling yourself. You don't give yourself credit for those things that you have done. Man, when you start to lay out the line of all of the ways that you have showed up in this lifetime, it should make you feel so freaking proud. But we learn to chase the wrong things. We learn to think that we're only supposed to be proud if we're famous or we're a really successful athlete or we've made a ton of money or we've done these big, bold things that everybody else should be impressed by. When you and I both know that there were days in your life where just getting out of bed was more impressive than any dollar amount anyone could ever earn. You are strong. And you have a history of examples of that strength. It's just that you don't choose to look at it. So one of the things that I have the women at conference do is to write a letter to themselves. This is something that I did, oh my gosh, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 8 years ago. It's been a while. I was taking a class. I got to go to a workshop hosted by Rob Bell and Liz Gilbert, and it was amazing. And Liz Gilbert had us write a letter to ourselves. And I thought that was such a powerful tool, and I've used it again and again. And when I got to interview her last year, I told her how important this letter writing had been in my life, and I told her that I brought it into my conferences. And I just think it's a really powerful tool for you if you've never done it before. Grab a notebook, grab a piece of paper, and I want you to write a letter to yourself from your persistence. Like, dear Rachel, I am your persistence, and this is what I want you to know. Dear Abby, I am your persistence. Dear Chloe, I am your persistence. Dear Blanca, I am your persistence, and this is what I want you to know. And in that letter, you let your persistence speak. You write down everything that you have ever accomplished and lived through and kept going. In fact, make it from your resilience. Dear Sarah, I am your resilience, and this is what I want you to know. I am the part of you that never gave up. I am the part of you that keeps going when it's hard. I am the part of you that is helping you to care for an aging parent. I am the part of you that continues to do the schoolwork every night after my regular work because I know that the answer to our dreams is that PhD. Dear Beth, I am your resilience, and I am the one that continues to fight to pay down the debt. Even though it seems so big and so insurmountable, I am the one that believes that we can be financially free. Every single one of you will have a different letter. But every single one of you should be able to fill an entire page with all of the things that you have gone through. The problem is that Most women won't give themselves credit for stuff because they think it's too little to celebrate. And I think that every freaking thing that you have overcome and stood against and figured out is something to be celebrated. I mean, look at it this way. Why on earth would your subconscious want to help you make change if every time it actually helps you do something good, you don't even acknowledge it? In fact, you only acknowledge the bad stuff. You only focus on what to be anxious about. You only focus on the chaos. You only focus on how hard it is or how you don't have support or how you don't have friends or what you wish. You only focus on what you don't have. So what you reinforce to your subconscious and PS, the universe, over and over and over again is that what you care about is when things don't work. We do not attract to our lives what we want. We attract to our lives what we are. Wayne Dyer said this 20 years ago, and it's no less relevant now than it was then. What you focus on, you give energy to. And so when you continue to focus on all the things you aren't getting right, you are reinforcing to everything in you and everything out in the world that that's who you are. What I'm asking you to do with this challenge is to start to focus on when it did work, when you did show up in the right way. I don't want to empower you. I want you to empower yourself. You empower yourself by discovering that the power was already there. And the next time that something feels hard or whatever you're facing in life, when it feels hard, I want you to look back at that list and realize how many bigger things you've already lived through. So that's the second piece, to empower your past, to look at it from a different perspective. The third part of this lesson on resilience, but also through the lens of power, is to understand your power, is to know that you are in control. I will say it again and again. I will be this 100-year-old woman walking around with a cane, still trying to tell you guys that you are the one who is in control of your life. You are in control. We cannot control what happens to us. We don't have control over the world around us. We can't control a global pandemic. We cannot control when we lose someone that we love, when someone leaves us or cheats on us, when the car breaks down, and now all of a sudden we have this bill that we didn't anticipate. We don't have control over that, but we always have control of our outlook. We always have control of the way we choose to perceive the world around us. Always. And it's not easy. Remember, resilience is about strength, and it's about strength that you develop over time. And if you want to be strong, there's no way to achieve that simply, right? It's going to require work and it's going to require effort. But you can reframe the way that you look at the world around you at any given moment. One of the ways that I've learned to do that over time is to become conscious of my thoughts. Think about what you think about. Meditation is hugely helpful for this because it allows us to separate ourselves from the thoughts. My doctor, Dr. Amen, who you guys maybe heard me do an episode with several weeks ago on brain and neurology and how we think and why we think, has this line that I love. He says, you don't have to believe every stupid thing you think. I said that to someone recently and I thought her eyes were going to explode. She was like, what? I'm like, oh yeah, just because you think it doesn't mean it's true. We're wired to believe that those thoughts in our head are the smartest things that we can come up with. So if it tells you that you're incapable, if it tells you that you're wrong, if it tells you that the world is out to get you or that all women are mean or that you'll never find a way, whatever thought you have, if that thought doesn't support you, if the thought doesn't support the world that you want to live inside of, you can choose to not believe it. In fact, I refuse to believe any thought that doesn't support the woman that I want to be. Now, it doesn't mean that there aren't times where I'm tired or maybe I feel stressed and I will think something and it will start to travel through my system and it will start to have a response in my nervous system that shows up as anxiety, mostly because I'm wired for that. That has happened so many times in my life that it can be hard to catch that thought before it starts to spread. But every single time that it does, I remind myself that that's not who I am anymore. I see the thought, I separate myself from it, and I remember that I'm in control. So if I am in control, then I have to practice that in real time. And the way that I practice that in real time is by choosing what I do want to think. We can choose our thoughts. Gabby Bernstein says, choose the next good feeling thought. What is a true thing that you can think about instead that will make you feel good? Not something fake, not a mantra that says, oh, I'm going to have $1 million by Tuesday, right? But what is something that you can think that is true and good? When you start to feel stressed, when you start to feel anxious, when that voice in the back of your head tells you that something is not possible, that it was never meant to be yours, what can you latch onto that is good? It's why having a morning gratitude meditation is so freaking powerful, you guys. If you have the Rise app, then go in there. There's so many of them. You can go onto YouTube, you can go onto Spotify. There's just so many gratitude meditations that you could do for free. It's why it's a powerful way to start your day, because when you do, you have all of these things to be thankful for at the ready. At any given moment, I can put myself back into a state of gratitude because I started the day paying attention to that. I can remember feeling gratitude for the joke that my 14-year-old told me, or feeling gratitude for the butterfly that I saw. Please don't roll your eyes. There's a lot of butterflies around me, and I just think it's freaking magic. There's something really powerful about paying attention to the little things. I think that people get gratitude wrong. They think that they're supposed to pay attention to these big, massive, amazing things. And I think that true gratitude is, can you find inspiration in the tiniest of details? And you can. It's one of the affirmations that I tell myself every day. There is beauty all around me. My world is filled with inspiration. And so I look for it. Because it's a practice of mine, I look for it. I look for opportunities to be inspired by other human beings, by nature, by kindness, by a plate of food that's beautifully presented. There is inspiration everywhere. And the goodness and the beauty inside that inspiration makes me want to be a better human, makes me want to think, oh, I hope that people look at me, and not on social media, not in a big, flashy way, but I hope just how I live my very real life. I hope that's what people notice. I hope they see the kind of person that inspires them. I went to get a coffee yesterday. I was treating myself. If you've been following my journey with my brain health, I'm only allowed this little tiny cup of coffee every day. It's really sad. It's really hard, but I feel so much better. So I believe in the work, and I'm going to keep doing it. But yesterday was the day after conference, and so I decided that I was going to treat myself. I was going to go get a cappuccino, which is a big splurge because I'm not really having espresso because there's so much caffeine in it. And I went to one of my favorite coffee shops, and I just had this awareness in me, this affirmation, because I was saying it to myself on the drive over, that I see inspiration every day. And I say it that way. I say it as an affirmative because I know that if I say that and I believe it, that that's what I will find. And I went to this place called L's in Bee Cave. If y'all know Austin, it's really rad. And if you've never been there, highly recommend it. And it's connected to this amazing place called Alive and Well, which is like you can get a massage, you can get a facial, but it's like really beautifully done and very intentional. It's not like a bougie spa. It's like a really wellness-driven, crystals abound. The practitioners really care about the work they're doing. This is not an ad. It's just like one of my favorite spots. So I was driving over to get a coffee. I was driving over to L's. I ordered a cappuccino, and I watched this gal, and I wish I had asked her name so I could give her a shout out right now. But she had bright pink hair, and she was wearing like a fun t-shirt and like, I feel like a Catholic school girl skirt. And she was funky and she was rad. And every human that she came into interaction with, she was just love, just joy and love. Every person she talked to, she had so much heart and so much presence and held space for every single person. And I don't know that there's anything that inspires me more in the world than someone doing their work with love. I mean, you and I have seen thousands of baristas who could not care less, or who maybe thought this was a job, or maybe thought I'm checking a box. And this young woman, I swear to you, she was living out her purpose. She was leading people. She was giving love by making them coffee. And I stood back and watched her. I was so inspired by the way that she was loving on total strangers. And as I was sitting there and I was watching her work, I saw a woman come up in line. It was a long line. I was waiting for my coffee, and then a woman came up in line, and I heard her say to the person taking her order that it was her birthday. She was wearing a really cute dress, and they complimented her dress. She was like, "Oh, thanks, it's my birthday." And I went over and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I have to buy your coffee." She was like, "What? Oh my gosh, no way. No, don't buy my coffee." I'm like, "You are not buying your birthday coffee. I'm going to buy your birthday coffee." And I'd like to think that I always would be that person, like that I would always consider showing up for a stranger. But I got to be honest, if I hadn't just stood there and watched this beautiful light worker with her pink hair love on every single person who came up to her counter, and if I hadn't been so aware of what it looked like to watch someone love on strangers, I don't know that I would have been looking for a way for me to love on a stranger. Do you see the connection here, you guys? Understanding your power when it comes to resilience is you understanding that you have the power in any given moment to choose what to see. I understand that when we're going through hard times, it maybe isn't the moment in life that you want to look for inspiration in the world around you or look for beauty. Or one of the things I say when I go out in public, a lot of times, if I'm, driving to the bookstore, I'm going to go to the grocery store or something. When I go through my day, I will say, "Give me someone to love." I will ask the universe to put someone in my path that needs some love today, which when we're in hard seasons feels like the opposite of what we should be asking for, because it can be pretty hard to love when you feel depleted. But I have found that when I'm in the hardest seasons, I can wallow, right? And there are times, don't get me wrong, please listen to me. There are moments when you got to sit in it. There are moments when you have to cry. When the right thing for you is to lay in bed and allow yourself to feel how sad this is. That's real. But you didn't make it all the way through this episode if you are still in that place. You have to be asking for something more. Even if you are still crying in bed and really processing it, you're listening to this because some part of your spirit says, it's time. It's time to start reaching for what's next. And one of the best ways that I know of to get out of that place is to show up for others, is to love others, is to understand that you are in control of your mindset. And if you're in control of your mindset, then you're in control of the way that you feel. It's hard. Man, is it hard. It's a practice. I started doing yoga. I think I told you guys this, which is wild because I am not a yoga person. Well, maybe I am now, to be honest with you. I've gone so many times. But one of the things I love is that the instructors always say it's a practice. They say yoga is a practice. And I don't know a lot of things in life that give us the opportunity to practice. This thing that you're going through right now is giving you the opportunity to practice. Practice the person you want to be. Practice the way you want to show up. Practice the mindset that you have. And sometimes we have to practice that thing a lot before it starts to click. But it's possible. It's possible to change the way you are and the way you think and what you believe right now, today, with a shift in your perspective. So look to the past. Look to the past to see what it is that you need to be reminded of. Look to the past to be reminded that you are strong and capable and brave. And then understand that in this present moment, you have power and control over the way you see the world around you. Because standing back up is never going to stick. It's never going to feel natural for you if there's a disconnection between the action that you're taking and the way that you're feeling. See, you can get yourself to physically or mentally or emotionally go again, but if you're disconnected from something grounding, you're just going to fall all over again. And maybe that's what's happened. Maybe you got yourself to get up and start going through the motions and you tried and it just didn't work. It's because there has to be a connection between the thing that you're doing, the action that you're taking, and the way that you're feeling. And if you still feel lost, if you still feel like you are on the ground, even if your physical body is doing something different, it's never going to work. The human spirit is capable of pushing us so freaking far, but it will only last so long if there's nothing to renew your spirit. So I hope that you'll take the time this week to renew your spirit with the strength from your past. And I hope that you will take the time to ask yourself what you can be doing today to be reminded of how powerful you are when it comes to your thoughts. I hope you found this week's episode helpful. And like last week, if this is something that resonated with you, will you all please take a screenshot and put it on social? Will you link out to it if you got a friend who you feel like really needs it, is going through a hard time? Will you send it to them? This work I do here is never about finding another fan. I don't need one more fan. What I do need is women to understand, and a few good men, because I know there's a few of you who listen. I want you to understand that you are a leader. And if there's something that you're learning in your life that's helping you, ask yourself who it might help as well. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. I will be back next week with my next segment on resilience, which is all about purpose. That's going to be a big episode. We're going to talk about how do you figure out what your purpose is? How do you tie that purpose to action? How do you create a plan from that place? It's going to be really good. So make sure you check it out. Have a fantastic week. Know that you are loved. Know that you are in control of what happens next. And remember, I love you and I'm rooting for you.